So this is gonna be a the Penn State Oregon prediction where I'm thinking going into the game why I believe Dan Lanning is not an elite defensive mind. He's not one of the best defensive minds. I would probably say, especially he's not elite. His defenses don't show up in big games, going all the way back to 2023. And I have these games in order from the first time I played Washington in 2023, all the way down to when they played Ohio State in the Rose Bowl last year. So I have those, and I have about 6, 7 games. The ones I thought were, and it probably could have been more, but about 6, 7 games where I thought that you look at it and it's not even what I think, it's the facts. Because the facts say that Oregon's defense in these big games doesn't show up. So let's look. This is the first time they played Washington on the road, Husky Stadium, playing the Huskies. Michael Penix, 302, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Dylan Johnson, 20 carries, 100 yards, 5 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Then you go on a pat. Then you go on to receivers. Romo Dunze had 8 for 120, 16 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns. You're gonna poke at 6 for 118, 1 touchdown. I give you these stats why. This is what I call evidence. When you're trying to build a case against somebody, why do you think this person did this crime, committed this crime? This is my case against Dan Lanning. Why I think the facts show that he is not an elite defensive coordinator. He's not an elite defensive mind. Defenses don't show up in mid games. What about your defense is elite? We keep giving these dudes titles, and we put them in these lists that the facts show they don't deserve to be in because we look too much at name, and because his name is Dan Lanning, he came from Georgia, and we know what his defenses look like at Georgia. We assume his defenses have been elite at Oregon, and they haven't been. He's not an elite defensive mind. You could argue he's not. I would even. You could argue he's not even really good. So he got shredded. Obviously, got shredded. 36, almost 40 points the board put on him the first time they played. It was a flat out shredding. Dylan Johnson had a day. Couldn't stop the run. Two receivers at over 100 yards receiving. Both of them almost averaged 20 yards a catch. They had what, one, two, three. I mean, that's three. That's 4 touchdowns right there between Dylan Johnson, Romo Dunze, Jalen Pope. That's 4 touchdowns. So, and then Josh Jackson had a touchdown. So it's like it just wasn't a it was not, again, not an elite defensive performance. Got shredded, got destroyed on the road. Okay, where's Oregon going to be this week on the road? That's not going to help. And you had a Bo Nix already, so we're going to get into the Dante Moore thing. But at least you had a Bo Nix to help you put up points to compete. But you're not having Bo Nix this weekend. I tell you that. So we go to the second matchup between Oregon and Washington in the Pac-12 championship. Michael picked 319, one time one pick. Not no crazy day. You could, that doesn't look crazy, but you're gonna see. Okay, they don't look crazy, but look, let me show you what is crazy. Dylan Johnson, 28 carries, 152 yards, 5.4 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. So we're seeing Oregon doing a horrible job of stopping the run. They cannot stop the run versus Washington in 2023. They do a horrible job of it, and that's going to be consistent as we look at the evidence that we have against Dan Lanning and his horrible defenses in big games. It's going to be consistent. It's not just Dylan Johnson. It's everybody is literally running wild against Oregon. And what is Penn State going to do when they play Oregon on Saturday night? They're going to run the ball. We all know that. So, just telling you now, on top of that, it ain't just the front seven or the fact that they can't stop the run. It's, again, this time it's not even. Well, the last time it was Polk. This time it's not Polk. Didn't even have a great game. They didn't even need to have a big game. McMillan took Polk's role. Oh, Dunze had 8 for 100 yards again, 12.8 yards per carry, and then McMillan said, "Okay, Polk, you have your little light day. I'm gonna make up for you today." McMillan's the one that had 9 for 131, 14 yards per catch. So, again, horrible job stopping the run, getting shredded in the run game for 2 games in a row in 2023. Then you look at McMillan, Odunze, and Polk all had at least one game with over 100 yards. Odunze had 2 games over 100 yards versus Oregon in 2023. Doing a whole, again, the defense is just a collapse. It ain't like, oh, well, they're having good games. They're having great games. Dylan Johnson's having great games versus Oregon's defense in big games. Okay, that's 2023. Let's go to 2024. This is like one of the first games of the season versus Boise State in Austin Stadium at home. Maddox Madison has a horrible game, 17 for 40, 180 yards, 1 touchdown. They're receiving. Look at the receiving. Carlos Camper, 4 for 52. Nobody did anything receiving. There's one person that Oregon could not stop. One person we could not stop. this elite defensive mind, right? But he could, his defense couldn't stop one person. Max wasn't having no big day. Nobody in the tight ends, receivers, running backs wasn't doing nothing in the passing game. It was one guy that did something. It was Argenti. This vaulted and started Argenti's Heisman campaign. Everybody knew Argenti was elite, but this vaulted him into the Heisman campaign. 25 carries, 192 yards, 7.7 yards, 8 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. It continues to be a trend. These big games, you have to, if Oregon, you have to admit you are concerned about this run defense in these big games because you're seeing. Because what's the argument be? Well, Uala can't throw, so it doesn't matter. They can load the box. It doesn't matter. Boise State couldn't throw, and they scored 34 points and took Oregon to the wire at home. And they don't have nowhere near the talent Penn State has. And all I needed was one player in Ashton Jeanty to do what they did, right? Okay, so that again it shows Dan Lanning's defense not being elite, not showing up in big games. Then we go down here, the first Ohio State game. You had 31 points. They won this game, right? They won the Boise State game, which is expected. They won this game. I give them that. But again, wasn't an elite defensive performance. Will Howard, 20 for 35, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns. Henderson had 10 carries, averaged 8.7 yards a carry. Was a really good day from him. And then down here again, Jeremiah Smith, 9 for 100 yards, averaged 11 yards a catch, 1 touchdown. Emeka Buga, 10 for 93 yards, 1 touchdown. Again, people are beating Oregon defense in multiple ways. Whatever your strength is offensively, Oregon is. It's not like Oregon. They can stop the pass. They just can't stop the run. Or they just can't stop the run. But they can slow you down in the pass game. Oregon can't do either one of them. Well, whatever your strength is offensively, you'll be able to beat Oregon doing that. You'll be able to beat Oregon's defense doing that. If you're a team like Ohio that wants to throw the ball, you'll be able to do it, and then you'll still be able to hand your ball off 10 times and get 8.7 yards per carry, right? If you're a team that wants, and I'll give them credit, they did good versus Judkins, but if you want a team that wants to throw like how they does, you can still have two receivers over. This is multiple games that we've seen Oregon's defense give up pretty much multiple receivers have over 100 yards in the same game on the same teams, or that and that so that tells you a lot about Oregon's defense and how these games they just continue to struggle. It's just proven. It's proven in these big games. This Oregon defense continue to struggle. So I'll go now to the team they're playing. Everybody talk about Drew Aller can't throw. Drew Aller can't do this. He can't do that. Well, let me tell you what he can do. He can drop 40 points on Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Let's see what Drew Aller did. 20 for 39, 20, 26, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. And let's be real. First of all, that's probably a career game for Drew Aller. That's the best he's ever looked in a Penn State uniform versus the top team. But let's look down here. Two guys who are going to be back this year. So ignore Drew Aller. You're going to have to look at that. The one, look at this consent. Look at this. Katron Allen, 14 carries, 124 yards, 8 yards a carry, 1 touchdown. Nick Singleton, 10 yards a carry, 105 yards, 10.5 yards a carry. It continues to be the same problem. This Penn State team already showed you what they're going to do versus Oregon defense. So I don't even know why if anybody picking against Penn State, they don't know they just not admitting the facts at the end of the day. Again, it shows. I'm showing y'all. Okay, they're back. Like those, it ain't like these dudes are gone. Like there's somebody we ain't seen before. These same two dudes are back. Drew Aller's back. Again, what's the same trend? Penn State don't gotta throw the ball. They don't have to. They threw 2 picks. Drew Aller threw 2 picks, and he still scored 37 points. They don't gotta throw the ball. They do none of that. All they gotta do is hand off to these two dudes, Kirtronic Singleton, and Oregon will not be able to stop it because the history shows from even when I went back 2023 till the last Big Ten championship game, they can't stop the run. Whatever your strength is, you will be able to do it versus Oregon's defense. That's what Oregon's defense is showing you. They are horrible at stopping the run. If you want to throw, they're horrible at stopping the pass. They've had multiple games where they've given 100-yard games to two receivers on the same team. Washington, in 2023, both games they get both games at least two Washington receivers had 100 yards receiving. Ohio State the first time they give up 93 to Ibuka, 100 to Jeremiah Smith. Now you play Penn State. Penn State runs the ball. I mean, ran a wild versus you in the championship game. Ashton Jeanty had a has a Heisman level performance versus you early in the season last year. Then we get to the final matchup of Ohio State and Oregon. Where Oregon got blasted. And what is this game? Again, we go back to the fact. We go back and look just at the history. This is what the last time we saw Oregon in a big game, big game. This is what their defense did. Will Howard, 726, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns. Trevor has an 8 carries, 94 yards, average 11.8 yards a carry, two touchdowns. Judkins at 17 for 85, average 5 yards a carry. So half they came back and said, okay, we want to run the ball even more versus Oregon. We really want to exert our dominance in the run game, be more consistent because they weren't as dominant in the first game as they were in the second game. And they did that on top of Jeremiah Smith, 7 for 187, 26 yards a catch, two touchdowns, and Buka, 5 for 72, 14 yards, averaging 40 yards a catch, one touchdown. Again, gave up 41 points to Ohio State. This defense, this is my case. And now I'm going to rest my case that Dan Lanning is not an elite defensive mind. You can even argue he's not even a really good one in the big games. His defense stinks. It stinks. So my question to everybody that's picking Oregon, what's going to change? Because what you're saying is, look, what is what we're saying at the end of the day? We know Oregon's defense is going to, from what they showed us since 2023 till today, so far, all we know is Oregon's defense is going to collapse, on Saturday night, and Penn State's going to be able to do whatever they want to do offensively. So what you're betting on is Dante Moore, a young quarterback. We've seen young quarterbacks struggle early in the season this year. Young quarterback who ain't never played as a starting quarterback in this type of environment to go out there in Happy Valley on national TV in front of all of America and one of the loudest stadiums and places, the hardest places to play in the whole country at night, 7 o'clock, national TV, and go knock this team off with a defense we know is going to struggle and probably give up at least 30 to 40 points. That's what you're betting on. And so, if I think if you were smart, if somebody was a smart man, you probably wouldn't bet on this Oregon team to win this game. So I just think the facts show it here. The facts show Oregon's even not elite. So anybody betting against Penn State probably don't know what they're talking about because the facts show you this Oregon defense is not going to hold up, and what they're going to do is they're going to leave a young quarterback out there to dry, and that place is going to be rocking. And you're telling me this kid's going to have to go win the game on his own, mind you. Here's the next point with Oregon. They lost Evan Stewart. Who Oregon going to throw to? Jim knows my top two defensive coordinators in the sport are Pete Kwiatkowski at Texas and Jim Knowles at Penn State, formerly at Ohio State. Jim Knowles is a defensive mastermind. DeCarry Moore, he's taking that away. So he who Kenyon Sadiq. So we'll see what they do with him that game plan. But somebody outside of Moore and Sadiq will have to step up. And who's that gonna be? That's my next question because you don't have Evan Stewart anymore. Who is going to step up in that receiving room for Oregon versus Jim Knowles' defense? Who's going to do it? Because they're not going to let DeCarry Moore just have a day. Jim Knowles not going to do that. And I'm sure he's going to have a really good game plan for Sadiq. So who is it going to be? Who's going to be that guy on the road in this environment, like I just said, to go step up? That's my next question for Oregon. I don't see anybody for them right now. I just don't see it. They'll have to come up, they'll have to show me on Saturday because I don't see nobody. People under there, I really question Oregon's receiving room outside of DeCarry Moore. I really, really do. I'm not high on it as a room. So I think this game can really be a blowout. I think people are. I know people overranking Oregon. They're overrated. And I mean, look. At the end of the day, I think people have to understand that this Oregon team is just not as good as people think they are. And Dan Lanning's just not as good of a defensive mind as people think he is. He's really not. And when people understand that, they'll start looking at this team differently. But you're asking a lot of an Oregon team with what I just presented you, with whether it's the lack of receiver play, lack of receivers you can count on, the defense you just can't count on. Because any Oregon fan, come show me. I mean, you can't explain this away. It's the facts. The facts are there. The fact you can't explain it away. Your defense is shown in these type of games. They're not going to show up. So you're asking a lot when it comes to a lack of defensive play in high level games. Well, I should say lack of just horrible defensive play in big games. Horrendous defensive play. Anytime somebody plays Oregon in a big game, they have the best games of their careers. That's really concerning for me if I'm an Oregon fan. And then you're asking a guy who's not Dylan Gabriel, who ain't Bo Nix, to go and try to go on a run and win a game like this, and he don't got no, and he don't got outside of Decatur Moore, he don't got anybody else he can really. Who he got? Who gonna show up for them? Nobody even knows. Oregon fans don't even know. They hope somebody, but they don't even know. So I just think you're asking a lot of this Oregon team, and you're asking too much of them. It's not realistic. I think Penn State goes out there. I have a really good feeling they're gonna go blow Oregon out on national TV, and y'all going and then all y'all gonna be saying, "Oh yeah, Oregon's overranked." Blah blah blah. Dante Moore and the Heisman candidate. All this other mumbo jumbo that you really should have seen months ago. At the end of the day, so I think Penn State is gonna blow out Oregon. Probably really, well, I mean, what they score in the Big Ten championship game, 37. I give them 40. And that's the scary part too. As much as I don't like Drew Allen, Penn State has better. They arguably have a better. I mean, Trey Pena is better. Kyron Hunt, they have more depth. They have four dudes I think they can rely on. Uh, well, they have three dudes. They got Devontae Ross. They got Trey Pena. I know I'm forgetting somebody, and then I got the Kyron Hudson. I know I'm forgetting somebody else. Um, but Pena's a stud. So I like what they go in the receiving room. I think Devontae Ross could be a stud. But the thing is, Penn State don't even need to throw it. All they didn't even like what their leading receiver was 7 for 84. After Tyler Warren, who didn't have that. I mean, he had a good game, but it was like nothing special. The next leading receiver was Harrison Wallace, was 459, and then their third leading receiver was Nick Singleton, the running back. So it ain't like Penn State got to come and try to figure out how to throw the ball to beat Oregon. They don't have to. And to score points in Oregon. They already showed we can score points in Oregon without even having to throw the ball crazy. All you got to do is hand it off to Kitchen Allen, Nick Singleton. So I think this will be a blowout. I don't see this being close. I think people will look at Oregon a lot differently after what happened on Saturday.